Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in for today's RoomKeyPMS webinar. Today, we're taking a look at the Rate Wizard. So the outline for our webinar today, we're going to start with a couple of introductions. Then we're going to jump into defining what is the Rate Wizard. We'll talk about how rates are distributed and why client types are used. And then we're going to dive right into a live demonstration on how to use the Rate Wizard. We'll discuss when you can start using this tool, and then we'll wrap it all up with a summary and open up for Q&A. So let's get started with our introductions. I'm Tasha LeClaire. I'm a trainer and implementation specialist with RoomKey since 2015. Joining me today, I do have our Director of Customer Experience, Mr. William Tan. He joined RoomKey in 2014, and prior to that, he also worked in hotels and hospitality for 10 years. Now, William and I are both based out of the west coast of Canada, and I know that we've got a couple of people joining in from all over the place, so I just wanted to open up the floor. On your screen, I'm going to launch a poll, and I just want to know whereabouts is your hotel located? So on screen, you can just tap the pop-up on screen there. Just leave it open for another couple of seconds here while we get everyone joining in. And there we go. I'm just going to end the poll in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so I'm going to share that result, and it looks like we've got a fairly even distribution for people joining in from properties located in the USA, properties in Canada, and it looks like we've got one person joining from outside North America. So thank you so much for everyone joining in today. So like I said, we are based out of the west coast of Canada here, and I'll be leading today's presentation. We do have William will be overseeing the chat and the Q&A section. So as we go through today, if you do have any questions, your microphone will be muted, but you can go ahead and add any questions to the Q&A button on the Zoom webinar presentation there. So go ahead and type in there, and it'll be William that will be overseeing those. If we have any questions left over, we'll also be able to address those during the Q&A at the end. Speaking of today's webinar, this webinar is recorded. The recording will be made available on our support website within 24 hours. And anyone who's registered for this presentation, they will receive notification when that is available on our website there too. We also have a webinar survey that is issued at the end of the webinar presentation today. So for those of you attending our live session, please feel free to enter in a couple of information for there. It's just a couple of quick questions. We do also ask for any feedback if you've got suggestions for future webinar topics. We're always looking for suggestions from our clients. And speaking about topics, we are happy to announce our next webinar topic for next month. For May, we'll be covering packages, inclusions, guest services, and add-ons. So let's dive right into the topic for today and define what is the Rate Wizard in RoomKey. We define it as an integrated rate management solution. And some of the features that you can highlight here for this product include creating and managing rates in one central location. That means that you can manage your corporate rates, your leisure or transient or FIT rates, alongside group rates, all in that one central location there. This tool also allows you to control distribution. So you can control any direct rates, rates that are distributed out to your property website or maybe to a third-party GDS provider. We can also control or apply restrictions. You can apply a restriction or remove a restriction like minimum or maximum length of stay. You can close a rate or close to arrival, all within this one central tool, the Rate Wizard itself. Now, I want to talk a little bit more about that distribution and how that is controlled inside RoomKey and how we really manage that tool itself. So taking a look, deeper dive into how rates are distributed, we have 4 main channels that we control using the Rate Wizard. Those are listed here on screen. That includes our Hotel Direct distribution channel. So that means any rates that are available to book by contacting the Hotel Direct. If I'm a guest and I contact the front desk, or that user is going to be pulling from rates through the Hotel Direct distribution channel. At the bottom, we also have website distribution. Now, I just wanted to define that this is specific to the ERES booking engine, which is proprietary software that comes with every RoomKeyPMS database, where you can show or display rates and availability on your website using our ERES booking engine. If your booking engine is hosted by a third party, maybe TravelClick or iHotelier, that is actually through the GDS distribution channel, not the website. The website is that specific tool, the ERES booking engine. Now, we do have two acronyms that are displayed on screen as well. We have the CRS distribution channel on the left and the GDS distribution channel on the right. CRS and GDS, if you look up these terms online, you're going to get a lot of different definitions. But for the purposes of RoomKey, I would like to clearly define our CRS channel first, and that is our central reservation system, CRS. This is actually proprietary software created by RoomKey, similar to ERES booking engine, which is created by RoomKey. So the RoomKey CRS is proprietary software that supports our chained or affiliated properties and allows them to share a single reservation system. So if you've got two or more properties that are chained or affiliated, and instead of using separate reservations teams, if you have one central reservations team, they're likely using this RoomKey CRS tool, and it's sometimes called or also known as RoomKey Red because it does have that red logo. So RoomKey CRS is a definitive product here created by RoomKey, and that differs from the GDS, which is a global distribution system. This is actually an international network of travel agents. Now, that could be travel agents in the traditional sense, where it's an individual that has an IATA registration number and books on behalf of clients, and they may follow up with the hotel after the client has stayed to collect commission. But this also includes any online travel agent websites like Booking.com, Expedia, any third-party vendors, which are not controlled by RoomKey or the hotel, but do distribute rates on behalf of the hotel, and usually for a fee for hosting that on their separate websites. So given this definition, or these definitions, and kind of going back to that RoomKey CRS definition, I'm going to open up another poll for everyone joining today. And I just want to ask, now that we've defined what the RoomKey CRS is, just want to ask, do you use RoomKey CRS at your property? So you've got a couple of possible answers there. You could say that you do use RoomKey CRS to book reservations at your hotel and its affiliated properties. You might say that your hotel is affiliated with other properties, but you do not use the RoomKey CRS. Or you might say that your hotel is not affiliated with any properties and you don't use RoomKey CRS. Just going to close down the poll in 3, 2, 1. And let me share those results on screen as well. So it looks like we do have a couple of people that are replying that they do use RoomKey CRS or RoomKey Red, but primarily most people have identified, most of people joining today have stated that their hotel is not affiliated with any other properties and they don't use RoomKey CRS or some combination of that RoomKey CRS or RoomKey Red. So I'd just like to show that information. We actually don't have too many properties that are using RoomKey CRS. It does come with its own separate training. So for the purposes of our topic today, where we're talking about the Rate Wizard, we're actually going to focus in on the other 3 distribution channels. So like I said, we're going to focus in on the other 3 distribution channels a little bit more, and just the CRS will be off to the side there. So like I said, the other 3 channels that we're looking at here, we've got the Hotel Direct, and that's the distribution channel where you have someone that's logged into RoomKey and actually booking on behalf of a guest who has maybe contacted the hotel directly or is maybe standing right in front of you there. The other one is the website or ERES booking engine. A little example of a demo property there, the Westerly. And then, of course, the GDS off to the right-hand side, those can be any of those third-party distributors. So it could be Expedia, Booking.com. We also work with some larger affiliates like TravelClick or SiteMinder that might also have their own booking engine or CRS component. But again, because those are third party, those rates are actually distributed all through that GDS distribution channel. So we can see how, or we can define that RoomKey, the rate wizard will allow you to distribute or push out rates to these different distribution channels. But in order to book those rates, when a guest is actually going through and trying to make a booking, they need to have a client attached. And that is what makes the rate bookable from the client or guest perspective. So when we're looking at client types have a close relationship with these distribution channels. So that hotel direct distribution channel, when a guest is reaching out directly, you might assign them a client type of leisure. They might be assigned transient or FIT, depending on the verbiage that you like to use at your property. And that does differ from any guests that are booking through your hotel website, through that ERES booking engine. When a guest is online and interacting with your website, they would be considered a website booking or maybe considered an online booking. Our third distribution channel here is the GDS, and you might just have a client type called GDS, but more and more common, I do find that when working with those online travel agents or OTAs, we actually do recommend that our clients use OTA client types. To help accommodate those different billing methods, we do recommend having different client types associated there. So client types are used to help further define your guests. So we've looked at the distribution channels and our client types now. Now that we know that we need to have a client type attached to a distribution channel in order for a rate to be booked, let's jump right in and see how we can actually use the rate wizard. For this component, we will be doing a live demonstration of how to create a brand new rate. And that process of creating a brand new rate is a multi-step process. So I'm going to be following these 3 steps to create a rate from beginning to end in the rate wizard. I'm going to create the rate plan first, then I'm going to set up the rate template and load rates. And lastly, I'm going to make the rate plan bookable by attaching a client type. So up on screen, I have a demo database. This is just a fake database called RoomKeyPMS Hotel. And I'm going to open up the rate wizard directly. So I access system configuration, and I'm going to find the rate wizard module here. Now, for some of our clients, you may also see that there is an old rates module. This is for our legacy clients. Any clients that have been with RoomKey before the rate wizard was created may still be using that old rates module. But for our demonstration today, we're going to be looking exclusively at the rate wizard. So let me go ahead and select that module, and it's going to appear on my screen as a pop-up. Now, just like all pop-ups in RoomKey, you can click and drag this, move this around, or you can expand to full screen. Just depends on what your preferences are there. When the rate wizard is open, you're going to see a list of all of your rate plans, both active and deactivated rate plans listed here. Every rate plan is going to have a rate name, which appears at the very first column. Next to that is the rate code. And then we see distribution channels listed along the column headers here. So at a glance, you can quickly see a rate. You can also get an idea of how that rate is distributed. So I know that the best available rate is available on my hotel website and distributed through the GDS, but my monthly and weekly rates are only available through the Hotel Direct channel. On this screen, we can also see if a rate is tier enabled, meaning that it is dependent upon another rate. Lastly, we also have a billing period column. So this will indicate how room and tax is posted when a guest is staying in-house. So for my best available rate at the top here, I can see it has a daily billing period, meaning room and taxes posted every day throughout the guest stay. RoomKey can also accommodate monthly or weekly billing periods, subject to transactions there. So at the bottom of the screen, we also have some function buttons. We can create a new rate. We'll do that in just one moment here. You can select the next button on the right-hand side, and that's going to allow you to set up your rate template and load your rate prices. Then back over to the left-hand side is our edit button, this pen and paper symbol, and this allows you to edit the rate plan. You can also attach client types, or if you're working with any accounts, it could be a corporate account or group account there. Now in the middle, I do have shortcuts to some required fields. That includes the rate categories, client types, and market segments. So we'll see when we create our very first rate plan that I will be required to attach a rate category, client type, and market segment. And we can see that we can actually take a shortcut here. I could update that list, or I could manage my market segments or client types without having to leave the Rate Wizard module itself. So let's get started with our brand new rate plan. I'm going to click the green plus symbol in the bottom left-hand corner. That's now going to give me a pop-up on screen where I can create my new rate. So the first thing I need to do is assign a category, give it a rate name and a rate code. From this category list, I can see a list of available categories that have been set up for this database. If you are doing this for the first time and you don't see a category that you want to use, or you want to make any changes to this list of categories, that's where that button, the Rate Categories button on the previous page, comes into play. So if you want to edit any information in this drop-down list, you can click Rate Categories and you can update that list of categories available to you. I'm going to create a brand new daily rate, so I'll just select the daily rates category, and I'm just going to call this daily rate here. Now for the rate code, this rate code is required for all rate plans in the Rate Wizard. And the rate code, you will need to adhere to some restrictions. So the rate code can only be letters or numbers, uppercase or lowercase letters. You cannot use any special characters. So I might just type in the rate code daily here, but I would not be able to use ampersand or hashtag, for example. If you try to use that information when you click Create, RoomKey will give you this warning message letting you know requirements for that rate code itself, which also include character length restrictions. So I'll just keep the rate code daily there. The next thing that I can do is define my distribution channels. Now, this property is an independent owner operation, so it does not use the RoomKey CRS. I can remove that distribution channel right away. I will keep the direct hotel, hotel website, and GDS distribution channels selected. Now, I can go one step further to further define my distribution channels by selecting the More Details button. This property has some penthouse suites that I do not want to make available online. I want those suites to only be available by contacting the hotel direct. So when I click More Details, you'll see that this will now expand. Let me just move this over to the side here. And it will show a list of all of your room types by room type code. And it's these PH suites that I do not want distributed out through the hotel website or GDS. So in order to remove them from those distribution channels, I would click the black drop-down arrow to expand for my PH parlor room type. I'm going to remove GDS and hotel website and only leave the hotel direct channel. If you have certain room types that you don't want to be available for a rate at all, you can simply remove the check mark completely, and that will not distribute rates for those room types. So you can customize this as much as you'd like. For example, here I have my Executive King Suite or EKS room type, and I'm going to make this one only available through the Hotel Direct distribution channel. Anytime you're making changes to these room type distributions, you want to select Apply in the bottom left-hand corner to save those changes. Now, when you do have restrictions or customizations to those distribution channels, you'll notice here that I now have an asterisk listed beside the distribution channel. And that is a visual cue to let me know that not all rooms are available through that distribution channel for this rate. Now, moving further down, I do have the ability to add some restrictions for the rate plan itself. So if I was setting up this rate to be a advanced purchase rate, which requires the guest to book at least 7 days in advance, you can set up cutoff days at this point for this rate plan. So I could put cutoff days listed here, and that means that this rate is only available to be booked for days that are arriving 7 or more days in the future. This is actually a daily rate, so I'm just going to leave that. The minimum and maximum number of persons, those are actually controlled by the different room types that are booked overall. If I apply the restriction here, it will override those restrictions on the room types as well. We'll also talk about some of the restrictions such as number to sell or minimum maximum length of stay. The most common way that properties would put these restrictions on is actually to the when they're loading the prices. So we'll see that as well in today's presentation. A little further down, I do have a billing period. This is where I can assign the billing period for this rate plan, whether it's daily, weekly, or monthly. This is a daily rate, so I'm just going to keep the default setting here as daily billing period. It is important to note that when you create a rate for the first time, you are able to assign the billing period. However, if you edit the rate later on, you are not able to change this billing period setting. This is a one-time setting at the time that you're creating the rate. Below the billing period is the market segment. And again, this gives me a drop-down list. So I can select the appropriate market segment for this rate plan. And if you'd like to edit anything that appears in this drop-down list, that's where you can use that market segments button back on the main page of the rate wizard to customize this market segment list. For a lot of properties, you may not use market segment. It is an enhanced report available on BI reporting. So if you're not using the BI reporting tool to report on market segments, you may just have a default market segment already available for you there. For this rate, I'm just going to select the standard rates market segment. Lastly, at the bottom, this is where you can add a description for this rate plan. The description will appear for any guests that are booking through your hotel website, that eRes booking engine tool. It can also be viewed by any of your staff that are booking the hotel direct on behalf of a guest, but it will not push out to any GDS descriptions. Any rate descriptions for GDS rates posted by third parties, you usually put the description on the third party rate itself. So that would be through the Partner Central portal if it's Expedia, or maybe through your hotel portal if it's booking.com. But because this is distributed out, I'm going to add a quick little description here just to state that this is a daily rate that is available to all guests. So now I've added my required information and I've customized my distribution channels there. I'm going to click the Create button in the bottom left-hand corner. So I now have my brand new rate. It shows up in my main screen here, highlighted. It is alphabetized, so it'll show up alphabetically in this list. I can see my rate code is daily, all caps, and I can see those distribution channels listed here. I can also see that this rate is not tiered, so I do need to create my rate template and load those rate prices manually. I can also see that, of course, it is billed daily while the guest is in-house there. So I've completed that first of 3 multi-step processes. I've created my new rate plan. The next thing that I need to do is actually click this next button. This is going to allow me to set up my rate template and load my rate pricing. So this is a new pop-up screen that appears, different from the one that we just saw when we were creating the rate plan. This is a tool that allows me to edit the rate pricing and features of this one specific rate. So that's listed at the top here. It says daily rate. Now this screen, we're looking at the General tab, and the General tab is actually divided into 2 screens. We have this upper portion here with some checkboxes and a rate grid. And then in the lower portion, I have a rate calendar that will display what the rates are currently set up as. And you'll notice here that the first time you create a rate, it's always going to display in red because we have yet to set up any rates. There's no rates set up. Now, just like the other modules in RoomKey, you can choose to expand this to full screen if you prefer that view. We also have a little trick here in the center here. You can hover over the dividing line. When you get that double-headed arrow, you can click and drag that up or down. Let me just drag that all the way down. And that allows you to work in one half of the screen at a time. So we're going to start with the top half of the screen here, which is the rate grid, and we're going to set up the rate template. Here we can see my room types listed on the left-hand side. You'll notice that the PH room types do not show up because I am not, if you'll recall, I did remove the PH room types from all those distribution channels. So those room types do not show up on the screen if they are not part of the distribution channel. So my room types are listed here with the SQQ at the top. That's my lowest price or most economically priced room type, to my highest priced room type, the EKS or Executive King Suite. Then the grid is set up with a series of columns listed single, double, triple, quad. Those represent occupancy levels. So single occupancy, one person in the room, two people, three, four. And then we also have columns for extra and child occupants. So if you have any extra people over and above 4 people in a room, if you want to charge a nominal fee for the 5th person, 6th person, etc., we can actually set that up in the extra column. And if your property does charge for child occupancy, we can also add a fee increment value for child occupancy as well. Now, this property does not charge for child occupancy, so I'm going to leave this child column blank for the purposes of demonstration. Now, below the titles for each of these columns is a base rate row. This allows me to quickly enter in a base rate price. If your property has pricing that remains consistent for all room types, meaning that prices are the same regardless of what room type the guest has booked, you can actually use the base rate row to quickly load in your prices. So here, if my base rate price is $100, I can see that price for single occupancy automatically flow down to all of my room types. So regardless of which room type is booked, if it's one person in the room, it's going to be $100. So you can do that if that is the pricing model for your property. However, many of our properties, or the majority of properties, do change pricing depending on the room type that is booked. So an SQQ room might be at $100, but the SK room type is $10 more. So a total of $110 for the higher room type. So if you'd like to set up that type of structure where you charge incremental increases for each room type or higher room types, we can actually build that into the grid itself. And that is the process of setting up the rate template or rate grid. Now, if you click in this space here where it says $0, by default, this space is locked. So I can type on my keyboard and that might be coming across on my microphone there, but you'll notice that nothing is updating on screen until I remove the check mark from lock the grid in the lower right-hand corner here. So I'm going to remove that check mark. And now I can actually type in my incremental increase for the SK room type, which is $10. So when you're setting up the rate template, you're always referring to your lowest price room, the SQQ in this example. So my DQQ room type is going to be $50 more than the SQQ. And my DK is going to be $60 more than the SQQ. And let's have our EKS at $100 more than the SQQ. Now, we've been doing this for single occupancy in this first column here, but we can also set up these incremental changes based off of double, triple, or quad occupancy as well. So if your rates are based off of double occupancy, meaning that the price of the room is the same regardless if it's 1 or 2 people in the room, You can copy the same increments here. So I might do that for this property where double and single occupancy are treated as the same. But when it comes to triple occupancy, when there's a third person in the room, this property charges an extra $10 for that third person. So if there's a third person in the SQQ room type, that's going to be $10 more. If there's a third person in the SK room type, it's going to be $10 more for the triple occupancy, another $10 for the increased value of the room, because you're going up a room type and you are also increasing the occupancy. So it's going to be 10 plus 10, which is 20. I'll do the same for the DQQ, which is going to bump it up to 60. The DK is 70, and the EKS is going to be 110. So following that same logic, I can do the same for the quad occupancy. So if there's 4 people in a room in the SQQ room type, it's going to be an extra $20. Let's do $30, 70, 80, and 120. Now, when it comes to the extra column, you can see here that I'm starting to build a bit of a pattern. It's $10 extra for each additional person over and above double occupancy. That's the policy that this property has. So I can simply put in $10 for this extra column. And that tells RoomKey that anytime someone is booking a room for 5 or more people, it's automatically going to add in this extra $10. So now that I've set up this rate template, I want to save this information. So I'm going to select Update Rate Template. That's going to save those rate increments. So the next time that I come in here to maybe update or load my rates for 2023, I won't have to make changes, or I won't have to add in those increments. And in fact, I'm just going to go ahead and lock the grid as well. And that ensures that I don't accidentally click or type over these increments. So now that we have our rate template set up, I'm now going to load rate pricing, and that brings me back to my base rate row at the top here. So now when I load my base rate price, which is the price of the SQQ room type, my lowest room type category, I'm going to simply type in $100 to the base rate row at the top, and you'll see how the pricing is now flowing down and adding in those increments for each room type. And it's also adding in the increments for the increased occupancy. So for triple occupancy, that bumps it up to 110, and quad occupancy, it's bumping it up to 120. So even if some of these room types, like for example, this SK room type can only accommodate a maximum of 3 people, I do still have a rate that is updating here. But in reality, if someone is going through to book the SK room type, they can only put a maximum of 3 people in that room type. So I've added in my pricing to my base rate row at the top, and I can now visually confirm that these prices are correct for the different room types and occupancies. The next thing I need to do is select my date from and date to, so the date range that I want to apply these prices. So that's available down below the rate grid. The date from in the left-hand side, this is going to allow me to load rates starting from today, or I could choose a date in the future. I'm going to apply these prices starting today through to May 15th. So I'll select May 15th as my date to. There we go. And then below the date from and date to, or that date range selector, you'll notice that there's a series of check boxes representing the days of the week, Sunday through to Saturday. And this is because we can actually apply these rate plans. If you have rates that fluctuate, maybe you have a weekday rate and then you increase your rates on the weekends for Friday and Saturday, you can choose to apply these prices based off of the days of the week within this date range. So I'm going to do that. Let's say that this is my weekday price, which is applicable Sunday through Thursday. I don't want to load this rate for Friday and Saturday. So I remove Friday and Saturday checkboxes here, and I can go ahead and select update rate amounts. Now, if you forget to select update rate amounts, you will not be able to select save. This save button will remain grayed out until you select update rate amounts, and that now becomes available to select. So I'll select save. And RoomKey now confirms that it's going to update those rate amounts, the exact amounts that we see here in the rate grid. So I click OK, and I can double check my work in the screen down below. But while I'm here, I do want to load the price for the weekend at the same time. So my price on the weekend goes up to $120. There we go. All I need to do is add that 120 to my base rate row at the top. My date from and date to remain the same, but this time I'm going to remove Sunday through Thursday checkboxes and only load this price for the Fridays and Saturdays within this date range. Again, I select update rate amounts and save. And now when I click OK, that's now going to just add those prices to the Friday and Saturday. Let's check our work. I'm going to click and drag this dividing line back up. So the rate grid, let me just make sure I'm taking a look at my SQQ room type for my Hotel Direct distribution channel. And that now updates on the rate calendar down below. So I can see the price, $100, is loaded for Sunday through Thursday within that date range from now until May 15th. And I can also see that the price does go up for Fridays and Saturdays. So that price goes up by $100 there. Or sorry, by $20 there. Now, this rate calendar is going to display the double occupancy rate by default. If you'd like to see the triple occupancy or more information about this rate, you can double click on a date, and that will expand to now show you the rate breakdown for this one specific day. So that's April 22nd, see double, triple, quad occupancy pricing. You would also be able to see if there's any restrictions like minimum or maximum length of stay or number to sell. So I can close that. That is just a pop-up. That's for information purposes only. If I actually wanted to change the price on the 22nd, I would go back up to my rate grid and follow the same process that we did there. So for this one, we can also customize how you're applying your rate pricing per distribution channel. So for example, if I wanted to offer maybe a lower weekday price, if someone contacts the property directly to book, I can maybe offer, let's say, a $10 discount if they contact the hotel direct to book any of my standard or deluxe room types. I put $90 here. That's going to be my discounted price, so it's $10 less than the weekday price. And if I only want to apply this lower rate for my standard and double deluxe rooms, but not my executive suite, I can remove the check mark from this rate grid, and that will not apply this change to that room type. So let me unlock the grid, and I'm just going to remove the EKS checkbox, unlock the grid again. Now I'm going to keep the same date range until the 15th, but this is my weekday price, so Sunday through Thursday. And before I select update rate amounts, I'm going to come down a little bit further and you'll see a series of checkboxes for your distribution channels. So Hotel Direct, GDS, and Hotel Website. I only want to apply this change to my Hotel Direct. So I don't want this lower price to be available to book through the GDS or the website. This is only available if a guest contacts the Hotel Direct. Now, when I select update rate amounts and save, that will still update those rate amounts. And when I double check my work down below, let me just pull that back up here. I'm going to look at the EKS, the direct hotel channel, and you'll see that that remains at $200. I go to my SQQ for the Hotel Direct channel and see that the price is no longer $100, it actually drops down to $90. If I take a look at my hotel website, or let's take a look at the GDS distribution channel for the same room type, SQQ, you can see that the price is higher. So I'm distributing this higher price to the GDS and hotel website, but I'm giving preference or $10 off to any guests that contact the hotel directly to book. So lots of customization that you can do there with your pricing and your distribution channels, as well as pricing for specific room type. Now let me just pull this back down once again. And instead of talking about the pricing, I wanted to just also note that you can also do the same application, similar application using restrictions. So we have 4 types of restrictions that you can apply to a rate based off of a date range. That includes close to arrival. For example, if I wanted to place a close to arrival restriction on Friday, this coming Friday, the 22nd, it means that a guest could arrive on Thursday or Wednesday and stay through Friday, checking out on Saturday, but they would not be able to arrive on Friday and check out Saturday. A close restriction means that the rate is closed out completely for the day. The guest would not be able to stay through, meaning that if I close the rate on Friday, even if a guest arrives on Thursday, they will not be able to stay through Friday. They would need to check out on Friday. LOS is our length of stay restriction. So if I wanted to put a minimum length of stay or maximum length of stay, I can set that up here. I'm actually going to put a minimum length of stay for my Fridays and Saturdays in the state range. So I'll put minimum 2-night stay. Instead of selecting update rate amounts, I don't want to change the price. I only want to apply this length of stay restriction. So I'm going to go directly to save, and that will update my LOS or length of stay restriction. Now, when a restriction is applied, that will appear on the rate calendar down below. I'm just going to double click on this coming Friday here. It shows me my pricing breakdown, but it also tells me that I've got a minimum length of stay of 2 nights. So if a guest wants to arrive on Friday, they must stay Friday and Saturday, 2 nights in order to book this daily rate. Now, for each of these restrictions, you can also remove the restriction. So you could select LOS, and instead of just to bring the restriction or remove the restriction, I'll just select clear LOS, select save, and again it's going to update that length of stay restriction, but this time it actually removes that restriction. So on the calendar here, the little 2/0 has now disappeared. Number to sell is another type of restriction that our service does offer. Number to sell would actually limit the number of bookings that would come through. And it is important to note that number to sell is not applicable to GDS rate. So if you wanted to restrict how many bookings you receive through GDS or OTA, you would need to do that on their platform. Now that we've set up the daily rate information, we've applied some rate prices and seen how that restriction sets up. I'm going to return to the main page using the return to main page button there. And the last thing that I need to do to update this rate is to now attach a client type. So I'm going to use the edit button, the pen and paper symbol on the left-hand side, to edit this rate plan. And I can edit anything on the general tab, but what I need to do is actually go to the client types tab here so I can attach a client type for each of these distribution channels to make this rate bookable by those respective clients there. So for each distribution channel that I have selected, I see it appear here as GDS, hotel website, and hotel direct. You can click on the black drop-down arrow next to the distribution channel to expand and view a list of available client types. Now again, if you need to edit this list of available client types, you can click the client types button on the main screen of the rate wizard to update or edit any of this information displayed here. Now I'm just going to expand each of these distribution channels, and the way that I like to recommend this for our clients is to attach one client type per distribution channel. You need at least one client type attached in order for that rate to be booked through that distribution channel. So when a guest contacts the hotel directly to make their booking, they're going to be categorized as a leisure client type. So I select the leisure client type for the hotel direct distribution channel. Next, if a guest is on your website, they're going to be categorized as a website or e-res booking. And lastly, if a client is booking through the GDS, I do have OTAs here, but if this is just not using a specific OTA, I might just use the GDS booking client type that is built in this database here. Now I can select update, and that's now going to save those client types. And this represents the completion of creating a brand new rate from beginning to end. So you can always test this by making a new booking. Let me just close out of the rate wizard. I'm going to select new reds. So it's going to pop up on screen, and to make sure that I can see the rate available, I'm going to click in the rate section here And I can now see my daily rate appearing. And because I'm booking through Hotel Direct channel, it's giving me that $90 price. You can practice with changing your occupancy, maybe your arrival departure information to make sure that the rate price is fluctuating accordingly based off of what you've set up in the rate wizard. So we've been able to see how we can create a rate from beginning to end, how we can update that information as well. So if I go back to the rate wizard, another thing I wanted to show you here is that brand new rate that we created and we verified that it is active, you'll notice that it is not tier enabled. So if I need to load my pricing beyond May 15th, I will need to use the next button and go through that process of adding the base rate and selecting the date range as well. But if this rate is tier enabled, it means that it will be dependent upon another rate. So if I wanted to make the daily rate equal to the best available rate, that saves me that extra work of having to update two separate rates. I can simply update the best available rate, and that update will automatically flow down into the daily rate. So I'm going to do that and make it really simple for me. I'm going to select the next button. I skip over the general tab completely and go directly to the rate tiering tab. This allows me to enable rate tiering, and I can apply it for the rate pricing. I can also choose to do that for the rate restriction. So if I apply a restriction, minimum length of stay on the best available rate, that will also flow down here into my daily rate. Let's tell the system that I want to tier it off of the best available rate, and the calculation formula will automatically set this equal to the best available rate. If you'd like to make this a discount, you can add information to the calculation formula. It will do a 10% discount or 10% less. And always double check the written words down below to make sure that those make sense. Our rate tiering can be done by percentage or amount. So you could do $10 less or 10% less. You can also tier up or down. So you could make this $10 more. If you click on this less than, more than symbol, that will reverse the direction. So this would actually make the daily rate $10 more than the best available rate. So you can be quite creative there, but I'm just going to keep it simple and make sure that it shows daily rate is equal to the best available rate. Now, anything that we set up here on the rate tiering tab will override anything we've set up on the general tab when we have this checkbox selected. So we want to apply these changes now and override the pricing we originally set up. I'll select save in the right-hand corner, and that is now going to save that information. And I can go back to the general tab to actually view those changes on screen. Let me just refresh my calendar here. Great. So you can see that that is now pulling the pricing directly from the best available rate. I didn't have to load these prices into the future. It's automatically pulling that information from the best available rate. And if we update the best available rate at any time, that's automatically going to flow down into here as well. Now, we've done a lot of changes to this brand new rate plan, even though it's only been a couple minutes here, but any of those changes will appear here on the adjustment history tab. So for today's date, I could review all of the changes I've made so far. When I select today's date and hit the refresh button, that's going to show me when the specifics of each change per room type, and it tells me when that change was made, so the date and timestamp. And if I scroll all the way over here to the right-hand side, you'll see a username column. So it's actually tracking my username and letting me know that I'm the one that made these changes. So that is an overview of how to create a rate from beginning to end and how to review those changes, making those modifications as well here in the rate wizard. In order to do all of the functions that we looked at in today's demonstration, you are required to have an owner administrator user role for your clerk ID. So that will give you access to all of those tools. I do also recommend that you have permission 810 enabled on your clerk ID. Now, the way that RoomKey manages its permissions with regards to the rate wizard, we also have a series of anti-permissions. A user with the owner administrator user role will have access to everything, but if you want to prevent them from performing certain functions in the rate wizard, you can give certain anti-permissions. These actually prevent the user from doing things like that rate tiering. So that's really good to keep in mind if you wanted to specialize how people are interacting with the rate wizard. It's actually full access unless you give some of these anti-permissions. So the big question is when you can start using this rate tool that we just demonstrated here, and the answer is you can go ahead and get started right away. This rate wizard tool comes standard with all of our databases, and everyone is, it comes with all versions of RoomKey as well, version 10 and above there too. So to summarize our webinar for today, just as we're coming to the top of the hour, I'd like to summarize RoomKeyPMS Rate Wizard. It does allow you to streamline your rate setup and supports efficient rate distribution, allows you to effectively target your rate restrictions all in one central module. And I know that we might have a couple of questions that are going on. We're coming up close to the end of our time here, but I just wanted to maybe open up the floor, see if there's any open questions. So we might, it looks like Will's been very diligent at answering the majority of questions. We have 2 questions left over, one from Lisa and one from Barbara. I think that these might involve a little bit more explanation. So for these 2 remaining questions in the Q&A section, I will be following up with those for Lisa and Barbara, just to make sure that you are comfortable with those multi-step processes there. So thank you everyone for joining in today. We will be making this recording available following today within the next 24 hours, so everyone will get notification when that's available on our support website. We'll also include these residual questions too, so that everyone is able to get their questions answered. Thank you, everyone. I hope you have a great day, and look forward to seeing you in our next webinar next month. Thank you for watching. For more videos, visit support.roomkeypms.com.